Jake Paul versus Tank Davis. They just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big.
What do you think of Jake Paul, Gervonta Davis? I know on Instagram you called it a circus.
Yeah, boxing is slowly turning into the WWE. That's what I think.
Does Tank Davis have a chance?
Yes, but
yeah?
I don't even want to talk about it. Don't ask me questions like that again.
Boxing champion Terence Crawford didn't hold back when weighing in on the rumored Jake Paul versus Gervonta Tank Davis matchup. Crawford called the idea ridiculous, saying Tank is simply too small to stand a chance, claiming the fight wouldn't even make it past the first round. According to Crawford, his first reaction when hearing that Davis might actually face Paul was complete disbelief. He said it felt more like a publicity stunt than a legitimate contest. After all, Davis has built his career mastering the lightweight divisions, showcasing explosive power and skill against fighters his own size. Jake Paul, on the other hand, is a natural cruiserweight, heavier, stronger, and accustomed to trading punches with much bigger men. No matter how you look at it, Crawford argued, the physical gap is just too wide. In his words, the fight wouldn't be decided by strategy or talent, it would be over the moment physics stepped into the ring.
I believe that this is a mismatch, and I believe that Jake Paul will knock Tank Davis out, maybe in the third, maybe in the fourth round. Tank will try to move, he will try to stick and move. It's not gonna work out for him, and he will eventually get knocked out. To be honest,
Crawford doubled down on his stance during an appearance on the Full Send podcast, saying flat out, Jake's just too big for Tank, way too big. And coming from Terence Crawford, that comment carries weight. It's no secret that Crawford has never been one of Gervonta Davis's biggest supporters, he said as much before. But at the same time, he's not blind to Davis's talent. Crawford has repeatedly acknowledged that Tank can hit hard, that he's explosive, precise, and dangerous when it comes to timing his shots. Even so, Crawford made it clear that skill only goes so far when there's a massive difference in size and natural power. Jake Paul, he pointed out, walks around 30 to 40 pounds heavier, and that kind of physical gap isn't something you can outbox. In Crawford's eyes, no matter how sharp Davis is, the weight advantage alone would end the discussion before the first bell rings.
Maybe he'll fight Jake Paul instead. What do you think of that?
I think that's terrible.
Why?
I mean, I get it, because at the end of the day, it's the money business, and you want to make the most money, but from what I'm hearing, he can make more money in a fight with me, and if that's the case, why not fight me?
Sure. Do you think he beats Jake Paul?
Do I think he beats Jake? Yeah, I mean...
Crawford broke it down plainly. Tank's incredibly gifted, powerful, explosive, and technically sharp, but Jake's just too big. Even if Davis bulked up and entered the ring around 145 or 150 pounds, Crawford said, the size gap would still be overwhelming. It's the kind of mismatch that pure skill can't erase. To him, it's precision versus raw power, and in this case, he believes Jake Paul's power would rule the night. Adding to the concern is Tank's recent form. His last fight, a majority decision draw against Lamont Roach at Brooklyn's Barclays Center, didn't inspire confidence. Many expected Tank to dominate, but instead, fans saw flashes of fatigue and slower reactions. A rematch felt like the obvious next step, until the surprising news broke that he'd be facing Jake Paul instead. That announcement left the boxing world stunned. It wasn't just the massive jump in weight that raised questions, it was the direction of Tank's career. Davis has long been celebrated as one of boxing's most electric performers, a knockout artist with elite ring IQ and footwork to match. So stepping up several divisions to fight a YouTuber-turned-fighter built on brute force and spectacle seemed like a baffling pivot. Crawford didn't hide his doubts. From his perspective, this matchup does nothing to advance Davis's legacy, and could even risk tarnishing it.
It's kind of weird, because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank, and I mean, but with it being
At the same time, Jake Paul has carved out one of the most talked about careers in modern boxing, part marketing genius, part controversy machine. His fight record reads like a checklist of calculated risks, MMA veterans, aging pros, and even a few retired legends brought back for one more spectacle. In November 2024, Paul managed to secure his biggest headline yet, convincing Mike Tyson, the former heavyweight champion and global icon, to return to the ring at nearly 60 years old. The event captivated audiences worldwide, but the outcome was no surprise. Tyson showed flashes of his old power, yet time had clearly caught up with him. Paul coasted to a decision win, more by endurance and circumstance than dominance. But Crawford isn't buying into the hype. He sees past the pay-per-view numbers and viral moments. For him, this isn't about Jake Paul's fame or marketing savvy, it's about the fundamentals of fighting. And as Crawford bluntly put it, weight classes exist for a reason. No amount of promotion or celebrity shine, he says, can rewrite the laws of size, strength, and physics inside the ring.
Tank looked very uncomfortable facing off. He just did. I've seen other face-off this Tank done. He gets in their face and they're intense and he looks good. He looked very meager up there. You've had 8 fights and you're gonna go tangle with Tank Davis. And the story instantly comes out. Jake is so much bigger. There is such a compliment to Jake within that insult. It is meant to be an insult. It is meant to take away from a potentially glorious.
Crawford went deeper into the logic behind his criticism, explaining that fighters build their entire style around their physical frames, from how much punishment they can absorb, to how quickly they can move, to the range they can effectively control. Every element of a boxer's identity, he said, is tied to the weight class they've mastered. And while Crawford admitted that Jake Paul isn't as sluggish as many critics make him out to be, he still sees the potential fight as a clear mismatch. When asked who would win, Crawford didn't hesitate. Jake, he's just too big. If he lands one good shot on Tank, that's it. He emphasized that Paul's right hand carries real power, the kind that can end a fight instantly. He's big, he's not slow, and he can punch, Crawford added. To Crawford, that's the defining factor. It's not that Jake Paul is some technical wizard or polished veteran, it's that his size and power could overwhelm a smaller fighter like Davis. One clean right hand, he warned, and the night could be over before it begins. In boxing, even a 10 or 15 pound difference can tilt the balance. But when you're talking 40 or 50 pounds apart, Crawford said, it's not just a disadvantage, it's an entirely different sport.
This face-off, Henry, what are your thoughts here?
You're hearing that shit from me, that's cringe. In some weird way, I kind of like
cringe about it?
He's trying to big man the smaller guy, who the smaller guy to me is dangerous. I think Tank Davis is going to put the hands on him, but I like it, bro. I will say something about Jake Paul. He's brought a lot of attention to boxing. Tank Davis guaranteed $40 million.
If you were in that position, would you fight Jake Paul?
Oh, hell yeah. You got to give Jake Paul his...
Still, Crawford admits he'll be watching. For all his criticism, he can't deny there's a certain curiosity that comes with a matchup this unusual. The sheer spectacle of it, the absurdity, the what-if factor, makes it hard to look away. Crawford understands this isn't pure, traditional boxing. It's entertainment dressed up in gloves and bright lights. But he also recognizes that fans crave exactly that, drama, risk, and unpredictability. And whether people love him or hate him, Jake Paul knows how to deliver a show. So while Crawford might roll his eyes at the matchup, he'll still be watching closely, not because he believes it's fair or competitive, but because, like millions of others, he knows it's impossible to ignore when boxing meets spectacle.
133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged.
While criticism continues to pour in from every direction, Gervonta "Tank" Davis's camp remains firmly behind the decision. His longtime trainer, Calvin Ford, insists this is the right fight at the right time, no matter how unconventional it looks from the outside. According to Ford, Davis had little reason to chase an immediate rematch with Lamont Roach. In his eyes, the draw at Barclays Center already gave Roach the biggest spotlight of his career. There's nothing more to prove there, Ford argued. Tank's done that chapter. He also made it clear that another bout with Roach wouldn't do much for Davis's legacy or his bottom line. Instead, Ford views the Jake Paul fight as a bold new move, one that, despite its risks, could introduce Davis to an even larger global audience. For Ford, this isn't about validation, it's about visibility, opportunity, and making headlines on Tank's own terms.
Hitting Jake was he ain't gonna fight back. He said, fat. So I said, you gotta take him serious. You get what I'm saying? Because he talked about, he had you on a hit list before this fight even happened. So his mental is on you.
Ford didn't mince words when defending Davis's choice. He said Gervonta had already given Lamont Roach the kind of spotlight most fighters can only dream of, and that alone should count as a win for Roach. Tank makes everybody he fights famous, Ford explained. Roach was barely on the radar before that night. He got a world title shot, a career-high payday, and his name out there, that's more than most get. Ford even pointed to Isaac Cruz as proof. Look at Cruz, he said. He's still running with that exposure. It was Ford's way of underscoring a consistent pattern. Fighting Gervonta Davis doesn't just test your skill, it changes your career trajectory. From Leo Santa Cruz to Ryan Garcia, Ford argued, every fighter who stepped in with Davis has walked away with something more than a paycheck. They've become household names. That, he says, is the ripple effect of sharing a ring with Tank. Win or lose, the spotlight always burns brighter afterward.
Jake went for the jugular. Jake comes back and says, anybody that puts his hands on a woman is a scumbag, and that's you. Tank responds. In the world of responses, it was as bad as it gets. In defense of himself, he makes a comparison to P. Diddy. Jake literally just puts his head down. It's like, man. And I think that Jake was thinking in the moment.
Ford acknowledged that Roach's stock skyrocketed after their draw, and to him, that was more than enough. I told Tank, forget about it, Ford said. At this point, it's about taking care of your family. Every decision has to make sense for you, not for anyone else. He emphasized that Davis ultimately made the call himself, a reminder that Tank has always operated on his own terms. Unlike many fighters obsessed with belts, rankings, or long-term legacy, Davis has been clear about what drives him, securing the biggest paydays possible. In recent interviews, Davis has even admitted that his passion for boxing has started to fade, saying he doesn't feel the same fire that once pushed him to train and fight relentlessly. It's a candid truth that few athletes are willing to share publicly. Ford respects that honesty. As he put it, my point still stands where it stands. For Tank, it's not about proving himself anymore, it's about making smart moves, protecting his future, and ensuring that every fight counts where it matters most.
My point still stands where it stands. Jake Paul wins this fight. I already bet Gervonta Davis in the DMs. We locked the bet. Guys, it's obvious Jake wins this fight. If you guys know anything about fighting, you know about weight classes. You know that Jake's been training for actual years. He's been locked in.